I'm Mark Van Dusen, former television broadcaster, now host of our brand new OBJ Regional Business Profiles. In our recent kickoff segment, Wilderness Tours founder Joe Kowalski described how, over almost 50 years, he carved a top-notch tourist destination from the Renfrew County bush. Now, in the second part of the interview, Joe details the trauma of back-to-back financial calamities. Last season, the closing of the river, and now COVID. Against staggering odds, he wonders what it will take to keep him paddling on. Well, you're a dinosaur who has learned to adapt, but there are some things outside of your control, like the flooding on the river, and as we all know, the COVID epidemic right now. What impact have those two things had?
Well, this is year number 46 for us. This is year number 46 in business. Last year was the worst year we've ever had. Okay, now we're not into this year yet, but and the reason for it is that there was flooding on the Ottawa, but it was actually not as high as it was in decades ago, because I've been on the river now almost 50 years. It's just that the flooding now, back in the day when the water was higher, there wasn't the proliferation of very, very expensive waterfront homes and cottages. In the old days, Mark, if the water came up high and the cottages were ramshackle, you opened the front door, opened the back door, the water went in, the water went out, and it was no fuss. But if you have 5 or 6 or 100,000 invested into your cottage or your waterfront home, and it gets damaged, and so what happened is that we did have flooding, but the Transport Canada shut down the entire Ottawa River from Mattawa to Montreal, the whole river, for almost a month. It was a disaster for us. And I can see keeping boating away from areas that were sandbagged, but you've been down the river where we raft. There's no houses, there's no cottages, there's nothing but trees and deer and bear and fox. And we are adept at running the river at every single water level, but we were shut down for a month. It was a disaster. And now this year with COVID-19, and I understand the need for flattening the curve, and I believe that we're doing that. One of the things that I don't agree with is that because I believe that mental health is as important as physical health. And, at least I'm locked down in a beautiful part of the world. I'm surrounded by nature. I can't imagine being in the GTA or in Ottawa in an apartment building, and I would go stir crazy. And so what I don't agree with, and what I think should open up first, is that let people go to nature. I think that I believe that mental health is as important as physical health. If given the choice, I'd rather have my mind than my body. And so right now, all the campgrounds are forced to close. We're forced to close. People can't go to their cottages. We have a lot of short-term rentals, and we're not allowed to rent them. And I just disagree with that people can't go to nature. Now, the argument on the other side is that it will overwhelm the local health care if they need it. But we're in southern and eastern Ontario. If you're at your cottage or if you're at a campground and you get sick, chances are you're going to drive back to the city to your own local physician. And so anyway, that's my only disagreement is that open up nature and let's look after people's mental and emotional health.
So you're saying, I believe you think that people could avail themselves of some of your services there safely without spreading great risk of spreading the disease.
Oh yes, what I'm talking about now is I'm not talking about opening up our resort yet. I'm just talking about opening up our camping areas, opening up our different cabins. One of the things that I've done, Mark, since you and I rafted and bungee jumped together decades ago, is
Right.
that I have been a proponent of establishing a national park to preserve the last whitewater on Canada's most historical river, which is the Ottawa. And so I started this endeavor 30 years ago. I was not successful. And then I had the sort of dumb idea to do it myself. And in the last 30 years, Mark, Wilderness Tours has acquired 5,000 to 6,000 acres of shoreline on both sides of the river to preserve it until I'm successful with a national park. And what I mean about people enjoying nature, I'm talking about just a walk in the woods. I'm talking about walking along the river. I'm not talking about uh, the social distancing is with deer and wild turkey. It's the not opening the resort yet, and so that's what. And it's the same thing with campgrounds. I mean, most campgrounds exist because they're popular because they're in nature and walking trails. And anyway, that's just my personal opinion that mental and emotional health is just as important as physical health.
Joe, there has been government support offered for businesses that have had to shut down because of COVID. Is that going to help you?
Well, I hope so. The problem with all these announcements, first of all, they're just announcements, and it takes weeks and weeks to get those programs in place. Now, one of the things that we did, and hopefully will be approved, is that we applied for a BDC, Business Development Corporation loan. And we're a very conservative business, between our line of credit with Scotiabank and our reserves. It's probably $1 million, but if we lose the summer, that's not enough. That's how. And so what happens is that, and most of Canada's tourism, even with the tourist establishments that have longer seasons or open year round, you'll talk to them and you'll say, when do you do the bulk of your business? And they'll say May to September. And so what happens with the majority of that being July and August, we're a northern country for tourist establishments, and 90% of the tourist establishments in Canada tend to be summer seasonal. When you lose the summer, you've lost a whole year. I have a friend that operates an adventure resort similar to Wilderness Tours in Mexico. And I was just talking to him the other day, and the Mexican government has closed down most businesses, my friend's business as well, but he's in warmer climates and he operates 12 months a year. So for him to lose 2 or 3 months out of 12 is not the same as us losing 2 or 3 summer months, which is our entire year's income.
Right. Joe, do you fear the real possibility of having to close down permanently?
Well, no, I don't think that it will put us out of business. I think that we'll be able to survive it. It will certainly wipe out all of our reserves and savings. That's for sure. Like this is year number 46 for me. It will be like starting over.
Joe, you're the epitome of the so-called lone individualist, the self-made entrepreneur. What's it like for you having to reach out for help from the outside and perhaps question the passing on of your company to your children?
Well, it's very painful because I mentioned earlier that I have a degree in mathematics and chemistry. Well, that does not really prepare you for business. But what happens with mathematics, it teaches you to think logically. And so from the beginning, Mark, we've been profitable since our first year because it was very simple. Don't spend more money than you take in. And if you operate by that, so we have never had any debt. It's just that we've never had a situation, nor would I envision one, of losing an entire year's income, because all of our expenses in our business, and it's with most resort businesses, your biggest expense is your fixed costs. Well, our fixed costs are still fixed whether we open or whether we don't open. We still have to insure all our building. We still have to do everything. We still have to pay property taxes. You have to do every single thing whether you're open or not. And so no, it will pain me, and I just hope we do get the BDC loan. It will pain me to take it because I've never been in debt. I don't know what it's like.
If things if things improve, if you don't have flooding on the river again, at least for a while, if we don't have another run of a disease like COVID, you must have plans and hopes for the future, to continue building your company, or can you share any of those with us at the moment?
Well, one of the things that that what we're doing is we're working on creating a national park. That's an ongoing initiative, and what we're doing as well is that we are downsizing because the market for what we do is not there. We've had the baby boom, we've had the baby boom echo. So I don't see us, and what happens is that this was a wake up call. And we lived through SARS, and it was devastating to our business, but it only lasted a month. And when COVID-19 came on the scene, I thought it would be like SARS, and SARS was short-lived. It certainly adversely affected our business. SARS started in early April, I think, of 2003, and our phones did not ring for a month. Well, now since COVID-19, our phones haven't rung in 2 months. And I don't know if they will start ringing again until this goes down, and then people will. What I'm hoping for, Mark, is that that people will want to go to nature. That they won't want to be packed in the cities. One part of our business is that that should benefit is that I was mentioning to you our passion at Wilderness Tours has been to preserve the whitewater section of the Ottawa River. So, historically, the Ottawa River was the way west, and so one of the things that we're doing is that outside the whitewater section, we have a very nice piece of property that we call Voyageur Bay, and I named it Voyageur Bay because Samuel de Champlain camped there in the year 1613. And so we're selling waterfront lots, and we have the distinction because OPG controls our water level. We have we are located on the only part of the Ottawa River from Mattawa to Montreal that does not flood, cannot flood, will never flood. And what happens is that I think cities now will become less dense. I think that it will be a big benefit to rural Ontario. You know, you and I are talking on high-speed internet. We have fiber right to our location here, and if you have good internet, location is irrelevant. Matt, who set this up for us, is his permanent residence is Lima, Peru, and he just when the
Big
prime
world.
minister said come home, we talk every day just like this, and location is irrelevant. So I think for rural Ontario, I think it would. I think life will improve. I think people will say, "Geez, cities are great, but let's be a little bit outside the urban core, and let's drive in for theater and a nice dinner and things like that." But I think there's going to be a move back to nature.
You mentioned Champlain. He had an indomitable spirit. I think I followed you long enough to know that you do too, Joe. And I'm sure that your paddle will continue to ply the
Well,
waters
I hope so.
of the Ottawa. And you know what? Someday we may get to bungee jump again.
All right, very good, Mark.
Thanks very much for doing this, Joe.
Well, thank you. It's always good to see you again.
Best of luck.
All right, thank you.